Welcome to the Freedom Finances Show. My name's Bradley Valentin, and today Nick and I are talking shop, and we're talking about the state of the stock market.
Today we're talking with Nick Arrington, one of our writers. Nick, how you doing today?
Doing good, man. How are you?
Doing awesome. Nick, this is your first time on the Freedom Finances Show. Do you want to introduce yourself to the audience?
Hey, I'm Nick Arrington. I've been working for T-Mobile for the last 15 years at one of the call centers here in Springfield, Missouri. Kind of a little bit about my background. I grew up very low income family, didn't understand stocks or finances or anything like that. And when I went to go buy my first house and couldn't get approved for a loan, I figured I'd probably need to learn some of these concepts and things. And so over the last, 20 years, I'm just kind of learning things through trial and error, researching and finding subject matter experts in their field to kind of understand, finances and, things like retirement and stuff like that. Just learning the hard way, how to manage finances. So.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining. We're going to have a lot more episodes with the two of us just talking shop here. Today we're talking about the stock market as the last 6 months has been pretty crazy. I know you and I were talking about it, but today the S&P is up 12.44% over the last 6 months. And I know that there's been a lot politically going on, but the S&P has probably had a pretty strong 12 months, as it's up 24% over the last 12 months, not just since the election or anything like that. So I know you love stocks. You write a lot of stuff about stocks on the website. So I just wanted to get your perspective. Like, what are you thinking? What's your perspective on why the stock market's trading so strong right now?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the stock market has been really having a good run for the last 18 months. If you look at it, I think we saw a pretty big drop, in end of 21 into 22, but then we've been climbing quite a bit. I'll be honest, I'm a little bit worried. I think it's a lot of companies are being valued much higher than I think they should be. In fact, if you look at the S&P 500, only 2 times in the last 10 years has the price to earnings ratio been as high as it is right now. I think on average it's about 24.5.7, and we're over 30 times earnings on the S&P 500. The only other time it's been higher than that is in 21, right before we saw pretty significant downturn in the market. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I think some of it is people are paying more for stocks than maybe what they're actually worth. And so I've got some concerns on the market and what it's going to do going forward, if I'm being honest.
So you think the price to earnings ratio just means that everyone's pretty much overvaluing everything in the S&P 500?
Yeah, I think, to quote Warren Buffett, be greedy when others are fearful and be fearful when others are greedy. I think people are greedy right now. I think they're paying a premium for a lot of these stocks, hoping that they're going to continue to go up. And granted, I think, what we're seeing right now is a little bit different than what happened in 2001, because that was such a sharp increase, and we've kind of seen a slow and steady over the last 18 months. So, I don't know what will happen exactly, but we're definitely paying more for stocks today than any other time in the last 10 years.
So to kind of go along with your narrative, so in late 2019, before COVID hit, the stock market, let's just say S&P 500 was around 3,200. It took a pretty big dip down to about 2,300 in February of 2020. Then it skyrocketed back up in late 2021, and then the dip you were talking about again was in 2022. And in the last 5 years, it's up 86%, but there's a few different dips within there. So if there's a dip, are you thinking maybe a year-long dip before it starts going up, or what are your worries?
Yeah, I think my worries are that, since we're trading at such a high premium right now, the market's got to stabilize at some point, or we're just creating, a new normal with these highs. But I think for me, and everybody has to kind of feel good about their investment strategy. So this is just kind of my personal feeling, but I think the market's going to have a correction in 2025. I don't know when. I don't think anybody does, but I think our price to earnings ratio is probably going to average back out into about the 25 range, which should see, unless these companies just start making a lot more money, you're going to see a dip in the overall stock price for that. And between you and me, I think I've got a majority of my holdings in cash right now. I'm kind of waiting for a dip to scoop up some stocks on the cheap. So I think we're going to see maybe a 5-point drop in the price to earning ratio sometime in the next 12 to 18 months.
That was actually going to be my next question, because right now it feels like a good time to buy anything, right? So you have a lot of money in cash. How long are you going to wait? Like, at what point will you be like, okay, maybe I should start investing some of this money? 12 months, 18 months? What happens 12 months from now and the price just continues to be inflated?
Yeah, so it's possible that the price to earning ratio comes down, but the stock prices continue to stay the same or even increase. So I think that's going to be the deciding factor for me. We've only recently been, above kind of the acceptable range on the price to earning ratio. So, I think if we get into like 28, 27 PE, and the stock continues to stay the same, I'll probably, chalk my theory up to a loss and probably buy back in at that point. Cause I don't think we'll see the sharp drop. I think the, anticipated earnings will do what investors think it's going to do and companies will make more money. But I still think the price to earning ratio will level off. Just whether or not that actually makes the stock prices go down, that's to be seen. So if I'm wrong, I'll have missed out on some stock market increase and chop that up to another hard-learned lesson in the stock market.
Awesome. Okay, let's talk about some stocks and how you feel about them. And let's talk about Tesla. Right now, as we record this, it's at $4.19. Much of 2024, it was in the high 100s, low 200s. It started the year around 180-ish, and it jumped up in July around 260 and then jumped down. A lot of people suspected that Tesla was overpriced at the time. I think there were some earnings calls that came out, and some of the earnings calls were good, some were okay, some thought that Tesla underperformed. And then in November, it started skyrocketing. So right now it's up, let's see, the last 6 months, 88% in the last 6 months. In the last year, 118%. It's price to earning ratio. Do you know the price to earning ratio there?
Yeah, so it's over 200, and I would ask you, what other car maker has a price to earning ratio that's over 200? And I would say I don't think there's any even close to that. So to answer your question, is it overvalued? I mean, yes and no. Tesla's a unique scenario because I think the believers in Tesla would argue it's not a car manufacturer, right? It's a they're going to change the world. And, if you believe in that narrative, I think that, Tesla's been over 1,000 price to earning ratio at some points, it's been one of the most shorted stocks before, they've had an incredible journey. So I think personally, it's hard for me to tell. I think you can make the argument is, electric vehicles and Tesla's mission, is that the future? I think so. I think we're probably going to head in that direction. And, what time frame, I don't know. But I think the question is Tesla the company that's going to kind of take us there? I don't know. I think a lot of people believe in it. And I think that's made the stock prices as high as it is. And, maybe Elon's tweets every once in a while make that stock, go crazy too. But I don't know. As far as the amount of money that they're bringing in to justify the value, I don't think it's there. I mean, when you're talking about, over 200 price to earnings ratio, it's just they're very expensive. But if they do what they want to do, I can understand the valuation and the potential upside for sure.
So I don't remember the exact dates or how many times it's happened, but I remember a few years ago it was trading around 1,000 plus, and they did a few stock splits. I think they did like 3 or 4 stock splits in the last 5 years, and it was in the high 900s, maybe even 1,000. They did a stock split, but not including the stock split, it is trading the highest it's ever had, that it's ever been at, around 419 right now. In 2021, I don't remember if there was a stock split, so it might have been trading higher, but with the stock split accounted for, it was trading around 381, and then it kind of had a few years of a lull. A few things that have come out since then is they've shown a lot of the new Tesla software where the rocket lands itself, the new robotaxi car, full self-driving has come out. Now, their sales are okay, and like the Tesla truck came out and it was supposed to be the best thing ever, and I think it's selling fine. There's still a lot of work to do. Do you think like any of those new software, like upgrades, like the rocket, the self-driving cars, do you think that has anything to do with it, or is it all dreams and hopes?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit of both, if I'm being honest. I think the people who, are diehard Tesla fans, like they believe in the mission, they believe in, and these things kind of encourage that narrative, I think. And, they don't get me wrong, Tesla's doing some phenomenal things, and I think they've got, a good leadership team. But it's hard to say because there's no other precedent. Like, what company would you compare to Tesla to kind of gauge, like, what they should be valued at? They're doing so many different things. I think, am I going to go and put my life savings into Tesla? Like, I don't think so. But maybe you do, drop a couple bills in there and see kind of what happens over the next couple of years. Either way, I think it's a gamble. And it may pay off, it may not. But yeah, I think, some of those things are really neat, but I think at the end of the day, it's got to create revenue. It's got to bring in money for the company. It's got to add value to shareholders, or people are going to stop believing in the dream. Like, how long are you going to invest in a company that's not returning a profit before you say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and dip out of this one. I don't know if it's going to happen.
Yeah. 2 quick things with Tesla. One, I've always wanted a self-driving car. I don't care if it's Tesla or anything else. I just want the car to drive me around. So I'm like ready for it, and I know full self-driving is out. When we were doing our stock journeys as a team for Freedom Finances, I picked Tesla. I think it was trading about 189. So I would be winning if we were still keeping track of that, just so you know. And I also did it for a school assignment for financial markets. But unfortunately, my classes are only 10 weeks, so like it was going down, and I looked very stupid. But right now, I look smart. Just no one knows it. So that's my story.
Well, okay. Well, to touch on that point, my man. Right. So hindsight's 20/20. Right. So you look good today, but if we were to start the game over, would you pick Tesla at its current price to be your winning horse that you bet on?
At its current price? No, no. It's so expensive. It's hard because it more than doubled. For it to double again, it'd have to be in $850. So
yeah,
I'd pick something else.
Look at what Nvidia did.
Yeah,
it's not impossible. I remember when it was climbing up to $600, I was like, sell, and it went over 1,000. And I couldn't believe it. So it could happen, right?
Mm-hmm. All right, let's talk about this one, which is interesting because it's also another stock that we talk about on our website, Netflix. So Netflix, over the last 6 months, is up 58%. In August of last year, is selling around 600, high 500s, low 600s. Price to earning ratio is a little bit more manageable. Still very high, but not as high as Tesla at 49. I have some theories of why Netflix is trading so high, and it's kind of my own personal thoughts. But what are your thoughts on Netflix? Would you buy a Netflix stock today?
Netflix is smart, and I think when you looked at them maybe a couple of years ago, it was kind of hard to see like, hey, they were spending so much money on creating content and things like that, that it was hard to see like, hey, where do we get the return on investment? But if you look at some of the moves that Netflix has made recently with like cracking down on password sharing and, different things like that, that are really strategic when it comes to, being able to increase the bottom line. Like they made value for their shareholders. And I think that with that type of a leadership team that's going to continue to, be okay with maybe frustrating some people who really aren't contributing to the success of the business. I think they got a team in place that's going to continue to add value and revenue. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. It's a little pricey, but I think they'd be worth gambling on. Yeah, I'd take a chance on Netflix. I think they're going to continue to have strong results. And, let's be honest, who doesn't have a Netflix account? It's kind of a must-have at this point. And what happens when they raise their prices? We say, man, and then we pay it, It's so I don't see it going anywhere,
Did you happen to be interested at all in the boxing match with Mike Tyson and Jake Paul, I think?
Yeah, that was such a sad match to watch, because I think I'll probably speak for the majority. We all wanted Jake Paul to get punched in the face a couple more times than he actually did.
Yes.
So it was a little disappointing, but all due respect to Mike Tyson. I think he's phenomenal, but I really wanted him to knock him to the floor. Just
my wife Carrie, who also writes for Freedom Finances, hates boxing, but she wanted to watch it and she wanted to see Jake Paul get knocked out. Part of my thought is if they can pull off something like that, and I don't know if they really pulled it off because I don't know about your experience, but it took 15 minutes to actually get it going because so many people were logging in. My theory is if they can do more live events, and I know this isn't the first live event they've ever done, but it had a huge crowd. I think they're kind of turning back time in the sense of we had cable 10, 15 years ago, and Netflix came around. First they gave us DVDs, then they gave us a streaming service, and slowly we started unplugging, and then Hulu came around, and then Amazon and Disney Plus and everything. And now everyone kind of has all of them, and we basically pay as much as we did with cable. But I think if Netflix pulls off some more live events, they keep raising their prices, but not too much. I think they just raised their prices $3. Either this week or they're about to next week. But if they keep raising their prices, they cut down on the password sharing, just like you said, plus live events, I think they're becoming something different again. That's my theory is why they're so high, and people are very excited about it. My thought is that they're going to, once they figure everything out, they're going to peak, and maybe they'll split some stocks to make it cheaper and easier to buy. Or if they don't do that, I feel like the stock price might eclipse in the low 1,000s. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think if Netflix follows the same path as most other companies that have kind of gone up to that price point, I think $1,000 is usually where you start to see stock splits and stuff like that, just because it's a little higher for the everyday trader. So I imagine if it continues to stay that high, we'll probably see some sort of a split. I think at a certain point, though, to your point, the growth is going to taper off. I think what you'll probably see, I don't think Netflix pays any sort of dividend right now, but I would imagine that you'll probably see some sort of a lowering in the price to earnings ratio. You'll probably see maybe somewhat of a decline as they continue to manage, costs versus revenue. But I bet you they plateau somewhat, the price stabilizes, and they probably start to pay out a dividend as just a consistent, revenue stream from a good blue chip type stock. Maybe not with the explosive growth potential that they've had, over the last few years, but just a really reliable, everybody's got them, monthly recurring income. I could see that stock split, maybe a little bit of a drop, and maybe a dividend somehow in the next couple of years. So
that makes sense. I like it. Let's move from individual stocks. Let's get into Bitcoin. Bitcoin currently trading as we speak at $104,000. It is up over the last 6 months 61.99%. A lot of the growth has come since the election of President Trump. On November 3rd, Bitcoin was trading around 68,000. And then just a week later, up to 88,000. Just another week later, almost at 100,000. And it's been sitting between 95 and 105. It hit some records. First question, do you own any Bitcoin?
So currently I do not. I have owned Bitcoin in the past, but as of today, I am not the owner of it.
What'd you sell it at?
Oh God! So this is going to be embarrassing. This is why I can't buy and sell Bitcoin. But I bought it at 20,000.
Okay.
I bought Bitcoin at 20,000. I sold at 25.
Okay. Hey, you made a profit. That's what, 25% profit? Okay.
Yeah, but that when you look at it today, should I have held on? Absolutely. But at the time, I was like, hey, it's I made some money. Let's take my profits. But yes, I jumped on the train for maybe 6 months and dipped out after that.
What would you buy Bitcoin now at 104,000?
Here's the thing. Like I understand Bitcoin is like this exciting thing, and the believers in Bitcoin say it's going to 1 million. I think to the moon is the expression.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I doubt your average investor even really understands what a Bitcoin is. And like, let me ask you a question, like to talk about something that is in the same realm. Would you invest in NFTs right now?
No.
No, nobody would. But you know what? And when 2020, that would go into the moon. And it's and you can almost argue that an NFT has more tangible value than a Bitcoin does. Because you at least have some intellectual property rights when it comes to NFTs, and it's like. I think for Bitcoin, it has value because we say it has value. And what happens when everybody agrees that it's no longer valuable? It doesn't have any inherent value as is, and so it scares the heck out of me, man.
Well,
it really does.
I see what you're saying, and I'm not by any means saying throw all your money into Bitcoin. But you know what else doesn't have any tangible value? The U.S. dollar. It is backed by the U.S. government's promise that it's good. Like, trust us. This dollar is cool. What it was in 1973 when it was fully taken off the gold currency or the gold standard, and now it's a fiat currency. My thought is Bitcoin is essentially the same thing, but it's only been around for about 15 years instead of 200. So yes, you're right. It's backed by consumer confidence in the technology and supply and demand.
Yeah, it's I think the people who invest in Bitcoin probably believe in that thought quite hard, right? Like the value of the dollar continues to go down and Bitcoin continues to go up. But I'll ask you, what happens if tomorrow Bitcoin drops down to $0? Like, you're going to have some people freak out. What happens if the dollar drops down to $0 tomorrow? Like, I think our society collapses.
Our country collapses. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're done. So while yes, the value continues to go down with inflation and stuff like that, I think there's so much invested in it that it'd be hard for that to be not worth anything. Where Bitcoin can be so volatile. I think the last time we had a run, the highs were 80, 90,000, something like that, and they dropped all the way back down to I think 16,000 at some point within just a short time frame. So I think even believers in Bitcoin know that we're due for a correction or a drop in Bitcoin price, and it's like, well, how much is that going to be this next time around? Who knows?
Yeah. So we had a pretty big high in 2021. I guess everyone was sitting at home buying Bitcoin. It got up to 65, 66, maybe close to 70,000. And then in late 2022, it dropped down to about 16,000. So that would be terrifying if you put, I don't know, anything more than a couple $1,000s in Bitcoin in 2021. The problem is a lot of people probably sold when it went down I've never done anything like that. My thought is, at this point, it's like something like 75 million people own Bitcoin. And the more people who own Bitcoin, and even President Trump has kind of made it more of a standard. He had an executive action. I forget the name of the executive action. Let's see, I might have it here. What did he call it? The Strategic National Bitcoin Stockpile. And he wants the United States to buy Bitcoin. Let me ask you this. If the United States, invest, $500 billion in Bitcoin, would that change your mind?
I mean, here's the thing. Does it change my mind as far as the likelihood that the value will go up? Sure. I think that's going to get people excited. It's going to get them to be more trusting of it. But, look at Bitcoin comparative to a stock, right? You can kind of have an idea of what a stock is worth based on how much, revenue the company brings in. What is the value of Bitcoin? Like, who's to say what the potential is? Like, it continues to only be worth something because we say it's worth something. I don't know what other than supply and demand changes the value of Bitcoin and why it changes. It's a very big unknown for me. So yeah, would I jump on the train if, something like that were to happen and I could make a couple bucks? Like maybe I might, risk and gamble a little bit on there. But as a whole, as a long-term investment, I don't know. It still worries me, and I'll probably regret this in 10 years when it's like, you could have bought Bitcoin at 100K. What was wrong with you? But yeah, it's a little bit scary for me, if I'm being honest. So I wouldn't do it for long. I will tell you that.
Just to be clear, I'm not necessarily saying put all your money in Bitcoin. I only own probably $150 worth of Bitcoin, which is like 0.0002 coins. So I just find it interesting. My thoughts are, the longer Bitcoin stays around at a decent value, the more likely it is here to stay. My thought process probably a year ago was either expect it to be zero or expect it to go up in price. At this point, I'm not sure it will ever go to zero. Obviously we can't predict the future. I just don't think that it's going to die off. I feel like the more it's standardized, whether it's by the government, whether it's by supply and demand, the more it is here to stay. So that's my thoughts on it. What about any other cryptocurrencies? Would you touch anything else? Litecoin, Ethereum, meme coins?
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to invest in a meme coin, you might as well just go to the casino and put it on, put it all on black and see what happens. I think that's probably better odds. I think everybody who invests in a meme coin knows that it's going to go down at some point. They're just trying to make a buck while they can.
I don't think everyone knows that. In fact, I think meme coins, 99% of the people don't know that. Let me give you an example. The Hawk Tua coin?
Tua girl, yeah.
Yeah. I don't think 99%, I don't even know if she knew it, but I don't think 99% of her followers knew what was happening. But, like, the second they launched it, they rug pulled, everyone lost their money. I did check that last night. It's trading at, like, 0.0002 cents per Hawk coin or something like that. So, yeah, massive scam. I don't know the lady's name. But yeah,
Isn't she going to jail for that now?
I don't know. There's a good chance though, but maybe not. Yeah, I always say, and we write on Freedom Finances, like, meme coin investing is not smart investing. Like you said, Nick, it's basically gambling. People say that, like, investing in the stock market's gambling, and I disagree. But meme coin is basically gambling in the sense that the house always wins, you pretty much always lose. And then every once, like, there's like 1 out of 1,000 person who hits it big. Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
What about like Ethereum or Litecoin?
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend to be a subject matter expert on Ethereum or anything. I think I may have bought couple $100 worth at one point. I think the only thing that really, for me as an investor, is it's, at a much lower price point than Bitcoin. So just because of that, I might be interested because, I maybe be able to see a little bit, better
Yeah,
returns or something along these lines. But to me, it's like the difference between investing in gold and silver. It's like you're investing in a certain thing. So just however much you want to put in there. But I'd say the same arguments, that I would have against Bitcoin, I would have against, Ethereum or any other
sure.
coin as well. So,
So earlier when we were talking about Bitcoin, you talked about like there's no physical commodity to back it. Are you ever interested in gold, silver, oil, stocks, anything like that?
yeah, I have definitely looked into it. I'll be honest, I haven't pulled the trigger on any yet.
How much
But
gold is in your house right now?
just piles of gold that I trip on. No. Other than jewelry, no other gold. But yeah, no, it's I think it's a safe long term. It's kept up with inflation for the most
Mhm.
part. So gold might not be a bad. It's not the thing that's going to make you rich, but it's a good
Right.
place to maybe other than sticking your money in a bank account, maybe invest in some gold or something like that to fight against inflation and have 30 years from now might not be a bad idea.
All right, let me ask you this last thing. When we look at you talked about a lot of your money is in cash, and it sounds like growth stocks, or whether it's the S&P, the market, something like Tesla or Netflix, is something you're not interested in. Do you keep anything in something that pays dividends, maybe like Coca-Cola, right? It's not a growth stock. You shouldn't expect any revenues you shouldn't expect any growth, but maybe some dividends. Do you have anything like that you're interested in today?
Yeah, ironically enough, I've got about 85% of my portfolio in cash, but one of the 15% I do have in Coca-Cola.
Nice.
I'm a very conservative investor. So yeah, I've got Coca-Cola. It's probably one of the few individual stocks that I own. And let's be real, it's not because it's a great company. Like I think with health conscious consumers, like soda and those types of things are becoming less, of a main thing. So the future of a company like Coca-Cola, it's hard to say for sure where they'll be in 20 years, but they've consistently been a company that has paid out dividends. They're a dividend aristocrat, so I really enjoy that about them. But I also invest in a fund called Noble, NOBL, that has dividend aristocrats, and it pays out a small dividend, but they've performed pretty well. I've got a couple other, ETFs and mutual funds and things like that I like to invest in. Those ones are more long term. I think it's less of a gamble if you put in something that has a wider, market share. Because there's less chance to kind of lose what you've got. And
Hmm.
I'm the type of investor when I start to see my investment go down, I want to get out of it. I don't like losing money, so I try to invest in things that will just slowly go up in time. I've CDs is another one that I've invested in,
Yeah.
just because you can't really lose money for the most part on
Right.
those. So
So let me ask you this: you're holding money in cash. You're not sure about the market. Why not invest in like CDs right now and at least make something on your money?
yeah, so I've been watching CD prices, new issue CDs for the last couple of years. I got in on some when the rates were at like 5.5%, and I probably did anywhere between 6 to 18 months out, just
Hmm.
because I hate the idea of getting locked in something and then something better comes along. So I like to have some flexibility to invest in that. And the brokerage account that I have, pays about half of what a CD rate pays currently on just my cash balance. So I'm still making a
Okay.
little something on there. I'm just not wanting to get locked. I think rates right now are between like 4.25 to 4.5, depending on your time frame. And it's for a couple extra, for the $30 a month or whatever difference it might be, it's like I don't know if it's worth it to get tied down in something like that. But if the market starts going down and there's no end in sight, maybe I'll throw
Yeah.
a couple bucks into some CDs and call it a day. Maybe go 6 to 12 months out, so I'm not locked in for a super long time. But yeah, no, that's definitely not out of the question.
I'm obsessed with always doing something. So I have some CDs, some individual stocks, some growth, some dividend, some ETFs and mutual funds, almost nothing in Bitcoin, just because I always feel like it's so expensive. Like, I can never afford to put money into it, even though I know I probably could. But most of my stuff I leave alone. The only stuff I really move around, especially within the last 2 years, are like CDs. And it allows me to like have some fun and like be like, okay, let's say I have $5,000 or $10,000 in CDs. Like, I can always move that around and then watch the other stuff slowly go up. I do worry that some of the other stuff will hit a peak, like you said, especially like going back to the beginning of the conversation. Like at what point will the market kind of correct itself? Like, inflation has been high, and I think inflation has also attached itself to the market, even policy-wise, like economic policy. I look at the United States, and battling inflation over the next couple years is something that's going to be important to this administration. How much is that actually going to impact the stock market? Who knows, right? Will it help it because profits go up, or will it hurt it because inflation is what's driving the stock market, or at least a percentage of it? So I have rolling CDs, and then some that expire every 3 months or 6 months. So I'm like, ooh, I get to do something. I get to trade and make some money again, even if it's at 3% or 5%, or it's getting lower and lower now. So yeah. All right. Any last words?
I will just say, I know that, most of this has been, talk of doom and gloom as far as, thinking the market's going to go down and, what stock options are, good or bad and stuff. I'll tell you personally, I made a very, bearish bet a few months ago and kind of sold out of most of my positions to kind of be at the, majority cash holdings. And, while I still believe in that and I still believe it's going to go down, I've definitely lost out on a lot of upturn over the last 6 months. The market has returned a lot of value for our shareholders, and I missed out on that. So don't underestimate the power of, like, it can keep going up. There's no magic crystal ball that tells you when the market's going to crash. So,
right.
time will tell.
Yeah, we'll see.